Hello and welcome to my weapon skill guide. In this video, I'm going to be going over every weapon skill in the game and if it is worth unlocking or not. The reason why this matters is because some of these weapon skills are on characters that have a lot of rank 3 upgrades. So the more upgrades you invest in, the higher the cost. So the first upgrade is always the cheapest. The second upgrade has increased gold cost and increased superior costs, and then the third, and in some cases fourth, has drastically increased costs. So on some characters, your third and fourth tier 3 upgrade on your weapon can end up costing you like 10 to 20 superior resources. So it's definitely worthwhile to know which abilities are good and which ones are bad, which abilities are good and which ones are bad. So let's start with Sara Noah. His weapon skill, Under Conviction's Banner. Is this good? Right out of the gate, yes. The reason this is good, it does cost 4 TP, but it does have a range of 1 to 3, which is quite large. It also has plus and minus 5 height, so you can hit units that are a little bit above or below you. The big upside of this is that Sara Noah is always near his team, and he generally isn't burning through TP. If he's near a Medina, he's going to be catching Medina AoE TP regeneration, so he just kind of passively builds up TP on his own, and especially with the Medina, and he acts as like a third battery, assuming you're running Medina and Julio. So this is absolutely worth getting, and it is very big impact. It's good on hard mode New Game Plus. It's good on any team comp. Having additional batteries is always good for supplying your team with TP, and him just kind of standing around, using Delaying Strike, just whacking things, sometimes hawk diving, sometimes shielding stance. He usually ends up hitting 4 TP quite easily. So this is really good and you should get it. 4 Dragons on Roland. This is definitely worth getting. It's a single target spike. It ignores their defense. If you hit an enemy boss in the back, it on average deals 350 to 500 damage, which is generally like 30 to 50% of a boss's health. It can also, in some cases, one-shot an enemy. So if you ride up 5 tiles or more and trigger Opportune Attack and get a crit from a backstab and then 4 dragons immediately after, this will kill a lot of enemies in one hit. Not tankier enemies, but like mages, rangers, like weaker enemy melee units. Definitely not like the ones with shields, but it'll put them at like 10 or 20% of max HP. So this is a huge nuke, and it's really good on Roland, and especially if you understand how to use Roland. But yeah, definitely worth getting. Dragon Shield on Benedict. This ability gives up to 5 allies in a plus shape 1 hit of invincibility that lasts until they're hit. So this is incredibly strong. This is one of the main reasons you even run Benedict. Some people like to say how good now and twofold turn is, but honestly, I think his best use case, especially on level 50 New Game Plus hard mode, is his Remain Calm and his Dragon Shield, and then twofold turn has some use cases and now has some use cases. But Dragon Shield is definitely worth getting, and is probably his best ability. It allows you to tank. If he keeps getting Medina batteried, assuming he's in a formation with a bunch of other units that need TP, he can just keep spamming Dragon Shield, and it just delays enemy damage and keeps your team tanky, and it's just really good. So definitely get it. Definitely worth getting. Next is Sunfall. This is one of the first ones I'm going to say isn't really worth getting. You can get it, and it can be good. But the problem with it is that it has to be cast for 1 turn. So if you cast it on where you think the enemy's going to be, by the time it's her turn, you might be right and maybe you get big damage off, but you have to waste 2 of Frederica's turns to do this. It can be some of the highest single target AoE damage in the game. That is true, but the setup is annoying, and I'd rather just use Corentin, to be honest, and I'll get to him in a second once we get to him. But I would say you can skip this. You can get this if you want to, but you pretty much have to use in tandem now or fast-acting medication to make any use of this. So aside from increasing the turn order on it, I would say it's not that good. And also, you only really cast it when you have 5 TP. You can cast it at 1 TP, but it deals significantly less damage. The fact that it needs to charge is annoying. If she gets pushed while she is charging by an enemy attack that physically moves her, it'll interrupt the charge, so that's another annoying thing about it. So I don't really think it's that good. You can play around it, and it can be good within tandem now or fast-acting medication, but without using that, it's just not good at all. So you have to use turn order increase, or it's just like extremely unpredictable unless, for whatever reason, the enemies like are going to for sure ball up around something like an Eridor provoke or something like that. So in that case, you could probably get away with using it. But you want to use turn acceleration with this. But I would say you can get this if you want to, but it's not going to make or break your game. And in fact, when I use Frederica, I never use Sunfall, and she does fine. She can still deal good damage without it. So it's optional. Miraculous Light on Gila. I would definitely get this. When she is doing nothing and you're just kind of waiting for enemies, or if you're just like repositioning and there's like, you know, low points in the battle where enemies aren't just constantly wailing on you and you're repositioning and you're getting TP back and your TP is high, this is really good to just throw on a unit you don't want to die, or to just like make a squishy unit tanky. It gives them an extra life. This can also be thrown on frontliners. This is good to get. I would say you should get this. What it does is if a unit were to die, it prevents the death, resurrects them. Well, it doesn't resurrect them. It heals them to full and prevents death. So this is good for deathless runs because it's like a get out of jail free card on units that are prone to dying. And it's just good in general. So I would say this is worth getting. Deadly Blaze on Anna. So this is like her big spike skill. Like if you look at all of her attacks, this is her highest damage ability by far. It actually is decent if you use surprise attack. Like if she uses take cover and is invisible, and then uses Deadly Blaze out of stealth with, you know, triggering surprise attack while hitting an enemy in the back. This can be decent damage, roughly 20 to 30% of an enemy boss's health plus debuff that allows your other allies to deal increased damage. She can act twice, so she can use this on an enemy or a boss and then smack them with a normal attack afterwards with scaled damage. And then it also kind of marks that enemy for death because now they take more damage from magic and, you know, physical attack. So I would say this is worth getting. If you're going to run Anna, especially on New Game Plus Hard, this is like essential. Like you need this because her damage falls off at level 50 a little bit. She's really good on the first playthrough, but after that she starts to fall off hard. So I would say you need this if you want her to remain remotely competitive. Shooting Star on Huet. Get this. If you run Huet, all right, I think Huet is the best archer in the game. She has great mobility because she can always grab high ground for free. She can maintain blind on up to 4 things with an upgrade that increases the duration to 4 turns. She can maintain immobilize on up to 3 things with the duration increase, assuming it hits. Blind is generally 90% accuracy, immobilize 75. But Shooting Star allows her to just, like, she can just shoot things, like when things are blinded or you don't need to blind. She can just accumulate TP from just shooting things, and then you can just use Shooting Star to spike something, and you can also hit an enemy in the back for guaranteed crit. So you can like reposition and fly like on roofs, and then just like nuke something from the back. She doesn't move to do this, and the range is 2 to 8, so she basically can just like single shot nuke something. This is definitely worth getting, and Huet, in my opinion, is the best archer. So you want to get this. All right, Eridor, King Shield. Top tier ability, insanely good, get it. Makes him invincible until his next turn. 100% infuriates everything, including bosses that can't resist infuriate. So yeah, get it, it's good, it's insane. If he is batteried, he is invincible. Straight up, he is invincible. He is literally invincible if he gets batteried. Permanently. Like if you just keep having Julio give him a TP, and then Medina give him 2 TP, every turn he can King Shield. And he is literally invincible, and he cannot be harmed by anything. And he aggroes everything in 0 to 2 range. 100% for 1 turn. So he is ridiculously strong. And you can also use Time Child to turn back time on just Eridor. And what would happen if you King Shielded? He'll actually get King Shield back. So it's really hilarious until the end of his next turn. So there's a lot of gimmicks with King Shield, but definitely get it. It's insane. Rain of Arrows on Rudolph. This is good. If you're going to run Rudolph, the reason you'd run Rudolph is Steel Trap, Slumber Shot, and he also can contribute to single target spike. Rain of Arrows is good. It gives him an AoE option. It's good. If you're running Rudolph, I would get it. It's worth getting. Glacial Moon. I think this is the best spell in the game for damage. It's basically everything Sunfall wants to be. I would definitely get this. Corentin is the best mage in the game for damage. Most people agree with this. There are some that don't, but they just don't know how to play him. And that's just like an objective fact. Like if you look at the numbers, if you know how to run him, TP on Ice and Glacial Moon with a battery, he is ridiculous. Icy Tomb as well. He can Glacial Moon, Icy Tomb combo, which is very powerful. But Glacial Moon has a 0 to 6 range, which is a little bit further than all of these other spells and most mages' spells. It does not need to charge. It does good damage, and it has a huge AoE effect. It hits in like a plus shape, but it's like a super plus because the range is essentially 0 to 2 from the epicenter. So his effective reach with this is 0 to 8. He can hit a tile up to 8 squares away, and the height is plus and minus 10. So if enemies are like high and low ground, it usually hits all of them anyways. Fantastic spell. Probably the best damage spell in the game. Definitely get it. Intimidation. On Julio. So Julio's biggest abilities, I would say, are TP Barrier. He can get up to 25% damage reduction from all sources, including magic, at 5 TP. This is one of his best abilities. Finish Them is one of his better abilities, and then Inheritor is one of his better abilities. And then, of course, Moment of Truth. Intimidation is totally optional. What it does is it gives him an AoE that can remove a TP, but more importantly, it gives him some kind of AoE. So if he's just sitting on high TP and you want him to just like walk in and just like smack a bunch of things for some good damage, it's worth using. So if you plan on running him a lot, I would get it. The removing the TP thing's a bonus, but I mostly just use this for some bonus damage. You also have to consider that Julio, like look at his health, 571 health. That's with an HP bracelet, of course, so he's like 520 health. He's actually quite durable, and he's kind of like an off tank with TP barrier. So it might not be too, like you could use Intimidation as needed. Like you don't want to use it when there's a ton of things around so that he can avoid getting spiked. You want to use it when you're about to like wipe some enemies. This helps open them up, put like 10 to 30% damage, like max HP of damage on all of them, and then remove some TP, which can kind of help, but I would say you can get it if you want it, but it's not essential. Power of Love. This is like the meta game for Milo. You need this if you're going to run her. 100% tempt in a plus shape, can hit up to 5 enemies. Plus or minus 5 height is good, so that if they're on like high or low ground or kind of staggered with their height, it'll still hit them all. They'll attack each other or any other enemies that are nearby. It basically just buys you time and wastes their turn and acts as shutdown. So this is good, and if you're going to run Milo, you have to get this. 100% tempt at range. It's pretty good. So yeah, you definitely want to get this. Above and Beyond. So Cordelia is a Chapter 15 unlock. If you're going to run her, you can get this, and it's fine. It's kind of like Gila Res. It basically just overheals an ally. So let's say you have something at like 400 health. This will put them at like 800 roughly. So it can be good. And she can get an extra TP each turn by just chilling out. And regen is decent if used like correctly. Heal is really good too. So every turn she can heal as long as she just doesn't move after she casts. She does have good casting range. I would say Above and Beyond is also optional. If you plan on running her full time, I would get it, just so she has something to do if like no one needs healed and she's sitting on 5 TP. You might as well just give someone, you know, some tank. It can't hurt. Heavy Smash. I was just going to say terrible, don't get it. It's not very good. It's a charge. If it didn't charge, I would say get it, but because it has to charge and it's a melee attack with 1 to 2 range, I would say you can skip it. If you really want to run Travis, then fine, get it, but I don't think it's very good, and it needs turn acceleration. It has the exact same problem as Sunfall. The damage is decent, but because it has to charge, I think it sucks. Because you also have to consider that wasting a turn accelerator, you could also just have another unit deal AoE damage. So here's what you're getting when you use charge ability, and this is why I think they suck. You waste a turn to start the charge. You have your turn accelerator waste a turn to accelerate a unit's turn, and then they waste another turn to finally deal some damage. When alternatively, what you could have done is cast a spell for AoE damage, turn accelerator on the thing that you just casted, have it cast another thing for AoE damage. And I can almost guarantee you'd be more AoE damage than what you're getting with one of these charge abilities, even with a basic spell, because it's twice as much damage. So, and if you look at the numbers, like even if he just uses Impending Strike, 192 for 2 TP, this is basically double that. So he could Impending Strike twice and delay things twice on 3 tiles, horizontally, and basically deal like 380 damage or something. Or you could deal 380 damage with a single Heavy Smash without the effects of Impending Strike. And this is just in his kit. So, like, it's not worth it. Don't bother. Act Again. If you're using Trish, I would say this is essential and you should get it. It allows her to set up a bunch of follow-up attacks, deal spike damage. It's a very combo-oriented ability. She also can use Leap for free with an upgrade. So you can, like, leap and then, like, get her into position on high ground and then shoot again. And then, you know, she can essentially do 3 things every 2 turns and maintain Act Again indefinitely, which is pretty cool. So this is really good. If you're going to run Trish, this is essential, so you would want to get this. Bloody Cross and Avlora, really good, get it. Like, there's nothing else to say. Big AoE damage. She's going to be accumulating diamonds, you know, TP, just from walking around spamming Risky Maneuver. So her main good attack is Risky Maneuver, because you just trade health for damage, and she can spike really hard, especially with stat boosts with low units. And then Bloody Cross, you use this when you have every time you hit 4 TP, and if you battery her and you hit 4 TP, it's insane, and she just keeps nuking things. It does good damage, has huge range, and it pushes things back. It's literally everything you could want from an ability. It's really fucking good. Get it. Catapults. If you're running Hasabara, this is like one of the big upsides of her. The fact that she can reposition units and also give them a defensive and magic buff for 3 turns. This is like one of her best abilities, if not her best ability. Be Brave is decent for spike healing to some degree. One of the reasons I don't like it is because melee units can just use healing pellets, like large healing pellets, panacea pellets, the 120 HP pellet that hits up to 5 targets, including themselves. So, like, I don't see big value in Be Brave, because you could just use an AoE healing pellet that heals 5 things for 120, including the user. Or just, like, it could just self-heal or use a pellet on another thing. So, like, melee units can heal each other. But the one thing I could see being good is this. So, if you're running Hasabara, this is, like, her big thing. You know, her and Time Child are the only units that can reposition things, really. So yeah, it's good. All things considered, I still don't think she's very huge impact as a unit. Desperate Defenses is okay. Up and Up is so-so. But this is decent. I would get it if you're running her. If you're not running her, just skip it. Mystic Beam on Narv. If you're running Narv, you want this. Good damage. Also some healing. Non-elemental magic damage is good because it ignores resistances and weaknesses. So in some cases, if enemies just have, like, resistances to the damage type you're spec'd into, Mystic Beam ignores that. It deals good damage, and it can heal things. It can hit up to 6 things. It's just good. If you're running Narv, you want this. He also has Extending Reach, so it should have 7 range with this ability, assuming that it combos off of that. But yeah, if you're running Narv, this is good. I would get it. Celestial Salve on Medina. This is a board heal that uses 10 HP recovery pellets. It hits every single ally for, I think, like 100 or 150 health. It's optional, honestly. Like, you don't need it on her. It's nice to have for healing things that are out of reach, but you're usually better off just, like, spamming double items and healing things, to be honest. So it's optional with her. You can get it if you want it. If you plan on running her, you might as well get it. But you're mostly just going to be spamming fast-acting medication and double items. So, but this can be useful in some situations if you're being hyper-aggressive and you have offense that's away from healers. This gives her the option to heal things at any range, which is absurd. So it's pretty good. So I would get it if you plan on being hyper-aggressive, but if you just plan on having her being near the things that need healed and that need TP, then you don't need it, but I would say it's optional. Automatic Turret, optional. So this sounds cool, and it seems good, but the best thing with Yen's are his ladders and his spring traps, which sounds stupid, because it's like, how is a ladder good? You just climb things, but it completely breaks AI. So I put him as S tier. I was convinced by people of this, actually, and then I tested it, and it's like, okay, they've got a point. You put a ladder on anything and just put a unit at the top or bottom, enemies will always try to go up ladders as long as there's no other things for them to attack. So, like, if all your units are on high ground or low ground and the enemies have to go up or down a ladder, they can't if something's in the way, and they'll just stand there and they won't do anything. Sometimes, I mean, if they're mages and they can cast on you, they'll cast on you. Or if they're archers, they'll shoot at you. But if they're melee units, especially melee bosses, it completely shuts them down. And then Springtrap can also completely shut down any unit, especially bosses, by stopping its turn and moving it back 5 squares, just perpetually knocking it back, wasting time. So these two abilities are what makes him good. Slumber Strike is decent, but Automatic Turret on New Game Plus level 50 misses like half of its shots. When it hits, it's good, but it misses a lot, and then also gets like killed in 1 to 2 hits. So it also kind of acts as like a decoy, but it's more expensive than decoy. So you can get it if you want to, but ladders and traps are better than this by far, and you're better off saving your TP for like Slumber Strike if you need to. But honestly, just ladders and traps are better. And Constricting Net can be decent. So you just basically delay the enemy. But you can get it if you want to. It's not essential. If it hit more often, I would say get it. But because it misses so much and dies so fast, I feel like it's not really worth it. It can be good. Like when it hits, it's good, but it needs to hit. So high jump on Maxwell. This is his best skill. Get it. Good damage. You can see here I have Endurance Earring and Res Earring. With Endurance Earring and Res Earring, he's like practically immortal, and he can just keep high jumping with a battery and dealing good damage and tanking. He's a really good damage tank, essentially. Originally I called him a Berser, but I'd say he's like a tank that can contribute to damage, like AoE damage. Now, he's not a damage carry. Like high jumping every turn does deal good damage, but it's not as good as like Corinthian and Glacial Moon, which does hit a little bit harder on average. But it can be like kind of comparable, but he does need hard battery in order to do this. So he has to like high jump and then reposition, and then Medina has to hit him. So he has to be like focused with battery. But a damage tank is good, and I would say this is his best ability for sure. So you want to get it, and it's good. Piercing Arrow. This one's okay. Being able to hit, you'll probably on average hit like 3 to 5 things, assuming it's like on flat ground. Honestly, I feel like an escapable arrow is just better because you can just nuke things from like 1 to 12 range, which is insane. And then with a Swift's End, like these two are really good. But it's okay. I don't like charge things. You need a turn accelerator. You can get this if you want it. It can be good on certain maps. So if you play around it, it can be good. So I would say get it if you want it, but it's not essential. You can just straight up spam inescapable arrow with the battery and then just get, a Swift's End procs. And then also you can use like arrow spray on enemies that are below half to trigger Swift's End on a few of them, killing them. So I would rather do that because this is instant. So I'd say just spamming arrow spray on below 50% enemies with Swift's End is hilarious. Whereas with Piercing, if Piercing Arrow didn't have a charge, I would say it's insane, and I'd put Archibald at S tier. But because it has a charge, it still can be good. But I would just rather use Inescapable Arrow or Arrow Spray or even Edged Arrow, which ignores defense. So this is better for bosses because you can just shoot them. It costs 4 TP and has a charge. Like all these charge things are just meh. It just requires so much setup. It can be good, I'm sure, if you line all the enemies up right and all the conditions are perfect, but it's a lot of effort to get to that situation, so I would say this is optional. Ramparts. If you're running Flanagan, this is essential. This is part of the Death Ball comp, where he sits in the middle of 4 units that surround him, putting 50% damage reduction on all of them. He can quarter damage on a single unit by also putting Shielding Stance while Rampart is active. So they take half damage from Rampart, and then half of that damage from Shielding Stance, he takes the other half. If you're running him, this is essential. This also is part of Death Ball comp, where you have a Nuking Mage, Corinthian, Medina, Healer, Battery, Sara Noah, required unit / utility, Bruiser, Flanagan as the tank with Ramparts, and then Avalora, who's the Wanderer, who just wanders the map, nuking things and smacking things, and can return to the Death Ball to help Turtle. But this is one of the best comps in the game as far as I know, and it's like a flex against the game because you beat the game with like 5 units easily on New Game Plus Hard, and it's like not even remotely difficult. And you can even adjust the positioning of Death Ball with Rampart to be absurd. So yeah, he's really good with this, so I would get this. Rite of Thunderstorms. Terrible by itself. Great with Time Child. That's all there is to say about it. It has like 30% hit rates against all foes, and it has to be charged. By itself, it's bad, but with Time Child, it increases the hit rate to 100% if he stops time and you unfreeze Azana and then have her cast this. and then you can like in tandem her after Time Child's turn to get it off really fast. This is really good with Time Child, but without him, don't even bother. If you do not plan on running Time Child, if this is your first playthrough, and you're only going to do one playthrough, don't even bother getting this. It's not worth it. Golden Opportunity, this is a New Game Plus ability. When you have money to burn, this is probably one of the best abilities in the game. It's up there with Glacial Moon. It doesn't have as large of a radius as Glacial Moon, but the damage is a little bit higher. It does deal physical damage, so it depends on what the enemy's defenses are, but the base damage power is quite high. It costs you 7.5k and has 100% tempt on all 5 targets, so you deal big damage to 5 things at pretty good range, and then after they take damage, they all have 100% tempt, so you deal like 20 to like 40% of basic enemies' max health is damage, and then all of them fight for you for a turn for 7.5k. This is like a New Game Plus, assuming you're grinding for money type of situation, but when you do use it, it's insane. So only get this if you're on New Game Plus. Don't bother otherwise. It's way too expensive to use before you can grind out the money for it. So only New Game Plus, skip it. Only on New Game Plus, get it. If on the first playthrough, do not bother. Skyward Fist. If you plan on running Groma, get this. If not, skip it. This is like her only good damage ability. Everything else is just kind of like chip damage. She has a lot of single target damage. Sweeping Kick does incredibly low damage. Energy Wave is her punch damage at a range. Yeah, if you plan on running Groma, this is like her only big upside aside from evasion tanking, which other units can do. But it allows her to Shoryuken something that's on high ground, and the higher up, the more damage, but it only can hit up to plus 10 height, and it can easily get obstructed if they're not on the edge. If they're like a tile away from the edge of the high ground they're on, it will generally be obstructed, which honestly kind of pisses me off that it's like this, because it's like her only good skill. So if you're running Groma, you need this. If you're not running Groma, skip it. Copycat on Piccoletta. Circumstantially good. Honestly, I wouldn't bother. Unless you plan on like using it for specific bosses or something. You can copy boss skills, but if you're just using her to spam decoys and to spam items and to deal like some AoE damage with item spam and to tank with decoys, I would just skip this and just go for her weapon damage increase, which increases other things. Basically just her like ball toss, which is okay. But yeah, I would skip this unless like you really want it and you're really obsessed with Piccoletta, but it's not really that good. It can be good against certain bosses where you can take their abilities, and it is free, so there's no downside per se, but the cost is, like, on your first or second playthrough, skip it. Like, honestly, it's not very worthwhile, unless you're specifically using it to, like, cheese a boss or something, but she's better as just, like, a decoy tanker. So yeah, that's it for her. Decimal, target HP 7. If you plan on running Decimal, you might as well get this, because he can be kind of finicky with his targeting. Like, most of these, sometimes there's instances where none of these can really hit, or they'll just hit like 1 or 2 things. So like having an extra thing that has more conditions is helpful. Maybe in some cases there's a bunch of enemies with 7s. And then it also consumes all your TP and it can hit really hard. So this can be decent. But yeah, I would get it if you're running Decimal, but if you're not going to run him a lot, then just don't bother, because he needs as many targeting abilities as he can, so I would say it's essential to run on him if he's being used a lot, but otherwise definitely skip it. If you're just using him for a map or 2, just skip it. Reverse Space-Time. If you are running Time Child, this is incredibly strong. Get it. It's essentially broken. What you do is you have Julio give him full TP from like Eridor, and then have all of your units go ham and kill a bunch of enemies and be hyper aggressive, and as long as you calculate the turns out so that nothing dies and you kill a bunch of enemies, you reverse everything, reset their positions, health, status, conditions, TP, and everything except for dead things on the board. So if your allies die or enemies die, they don't get reset. So you kill it, you be hyper aggressive, push in, kill everything, pull them all back, and heal them all. And then he also resets Julio, who can then Eridor him again, and you can keep doing this. So incredibly broken, probably one of the best abilities in the game. Actually, probably the best ability in the game, period. In general, like out of all abilities of all characters, this is probably the best ability in the game. Stop time, you could argue, is the best ability, but that's really slow and annoying to play around, so it's just not fun. Whereas at least with this, you can be hyper aggressive and just reset the board in your favor constantly. So yeah, definitely definitely the best ability, get it if you're running him. Gaia's Roar on Giovanna. If you're running her, this is good because you can use it on any tile. It does cost 5 TP. She does have trekking for TP, and with a battery you can get these off consistently. It does good damage, has absurd range. The plus or minus 2 height is the only downside, but it can hit a lot of things on flat ground and deal good damage. And even if you're just using it on the enemy next to you or like 1 or 2 enemies that are nearby, it's still significant damage. If you're running Giovanna, this is essential and you have to get it because it's her only really good ability that allows you to use it regardless of your tiles. Gelid Barrage is her other consistent ability with Ice Spam. I would say these 2 abilities are her bread and butter. And then the rest, like sometimes you get to splash. You can create puddles, but her healing isn't like the best thing. Ivy Beam is amazing, but you need Grass or Wheat Field, which unfortunately you can't create. So yeah. Scorched Earth is basically just like Fire Gelid Barrage, and it only will burn things that are flammable, whereas Gelid Barrage will create ice tiles on almost any surface. So I would say of the 2, Gelid Barrage is better. But Gaia's Roar, if you're running Giovanna, if you like Giovanna, this is essential for her. And that is everyone's weapon skill. Basically, an overwhelming majority of characters benefit from unlocking their weapon skill. There were a few where I said it was like optional and maybe it's not the best thing. So you can determine whether or not you want that. For your first playthrough, it can be really hard. So let me go to Yen's. For your first playthrough, it can be really hard to get enough superior resources because they are finite on your first playthrough. And then as you go through, let me find a character. So like right here, you can see here, just to get a Bird of Prey duration +1, it's going to cost me 10 superior timber and 10 superior stone. Each one of those costs 1.5k. And on your first playthrough, you're going to be hard pressed to get that. And for this upgrade, which is like very low impact, you literally have to skip some of these. Like if you want to get Dragon Shield, which is almost objectively better, or Speed +2, which is way better than Bird of Prey, like you literally just have to skip some of these. I'm on my 6th New Game Plus, or my 5th New Game Plus, 6th overall hard playthrough on the same file, and I still haven't gotten him this. I could right now, but I'd have to burn like, I don't know, what would it be, 30k, 33k to buy all the materials just to give him something that I'm never gonna even use, because I don't even use Bird of Prey. It's like, why bother? Let's see what else we have. I think most people are maxed out. I skipped some upgrades. Yeah, mostly everyone's, yeah, like this, like luck on Trish. It's like 30k for +3 luck, and I tested it and it's super inconsistent. Skip it. Yeah, mostly everyone is though. Yeah, same thing with Medina. Like, why would Medina need luck? Like, if there's an enemy in your back line, she can probably run up to their back and smack them. So, like, what the point of luck is getting front and side crits, so skip it. Like, 30k for that, not worth it. Get her Celestial Salve and her damage increase. Much better. These upgrades on Yen's, I didn't think the damage was valuable. I could get it. It would be like, I don't know, 17k or something. I could get it, but he's so good with ladders and traps, why bother? And for this, it's like, you can get it, but like if you plan on running these units full time, obviously upgrade them all the way. But for your first playthrough, that can be very hard to do. And like these luck ones, it's like, I'm not going to pay 33k to get +3 luck. It's like, it's not worth it. It's generally not worth it. Oh yeah, so for Piccoletta, definitely get this over Copycat. It makes her racket damage a little bit more consistent, which is good. So she can get some back crits and contribute to some damage, or throw items, which is probably better. Copycat can be useful, but it's like one of those weird abilities. And then for Decimal, honestly, might as well. It's his only tier 3, so it's going to be cheap. For Time Child, you probably want to get this stuff. I don't run him because it's just not fun to use him, in my opinion. For me, I'm sure other people it's fine. But I don't like broken things in games. But I would say Reverse Space Time and Speed are probably better than these, because speed means you do more things. So, but yeah, those are all the weapon skills. And that's pretty much it for this video. So most of them are worth getting, but in general, if you're going to be running a character full time, you might as well get all of them, assuming you're doing multiple playthroughs. For a single playthrough on hard on a fresh save, you're not going to be able to even unlock more than a few of these per playthrough. Like for your first playthrough, because you're not going to have access to enough superior crafting components to even produce enough. Like you're just going to be capped out, so you literally have to beat the game and do a new game plus to continue to get more superior resources. So you want to optimize for the best ones. But yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks for checking this out. If you like this type of content, definitely like and subscribe. We're almost a 1K baby. And yeah, drop a comment. Let me know what you think about the weapon skills. Let me know who has the best weapon skills, or what you think about specific units' weapon skills, or just how you use them. Like, you can just let me know whatever you feel like and start a discussion. It's always good. But yeah, thanks for checking this out, and I'll see you in the next video.